So the role of the federal government, they have two primary roles. And the first one is protect the rights of the citizens in this country. And the second thing that they should do is get out of our way. That's the proper function of our government. Those are the only things that they are supposed to do. Now, when you look at our founders and when they created government, they had looked at history, and they had seen time and time again, you have governments and large government that expands, and it gets out of control, and they end up consuming everything, and they take over individual liberty, and they take over rights, and they keep people from being able to achieve economic success. And our founders wisely realized this. So when they wrote that Constitution, that document, it was absolutely genius the way they put it together. They put very real restrictions on the power of the federal government. They had very few enumerated powers, and they specified in that document that the only thing the federal government was allowed to do were those things specifically enumerated in the Constitution. Now, unfortunately, we've moved away from that principle and that understanding. And when you look at that, you look at situations right now. You have Greece, for example, and their whole system is collapsing. And well, the Greeks should have read their own history, because if the Greeks had read their own history, they would have seen that this has happened in Greece time and time again. Over and over, they've had the same problem. Thales, in classic Greek times, said that a democracy can only exist until the majority of the voting population recognizes that it can vote itself benefit from the public treasury, and then it will collapse. And see, that's the problem we're facing right now in America. We're moving away from that constitutional republic, and we're moving towards a democracy. And when you see our elected representatives on stage, one of the most common things they say is they talk about our democracy and the wonders of our democracy. Well, as soon as you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, you should have a problem with that statement. I've heard a democracy described, and probably the best way I've heard it put is, it's two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. That's democracy. And that doesn't ever work out very well good for the sheep. This is the problem. We are a republic. We are not a democracy. We do not want to become a democracy. A democracy is inherently evil. It's tyranny of the majority. It's individuals voting away the rights of their neighbor. You didn't work hard in your life. You sat around and you watched a lot of Friends, and then instead, your neighbor, though, he did work hard. But at the end of the day, you just vote and take away the car that he earned with his money. That's wrong. That's evil. You don't get together and do that. That's not the United States of America. We were founded as a republic, and under a republic, individuals have liberty. Individuals have freedom. You see, our founders, something they did set us apart from every other country in the world, anything that had ever been tried before. You look at the French, and roughly the same time, the French had a revolution too. And they, two big things were different about the French and American Revolution. And one of those things was enlightenment. When you look at the French, they ran around and they screamed liberty in the streets, and they broke things, but they didn't know what liberty meant. They never had real discussions with the populace, and the average person never had a discussion about liberty and what it means to be free. And so the average person there, the average Frenchman, didn't understand it. In America, they had public readings of the works of Thomas Paine. Men in bars sat around and discussed the concepts of liberty and what it meant to be free and why King George was such a tyrant. They sat around and had these conversations, so they understood the fundamentals of liberty. The second reason was the French movement was a secular movement that led to the leaders of the movement being beheaded with a guillotine. That's where that movement led. In the United States, it was a moral movement, a religious movement, a movement where our founding fathers recognized that our rights do not come from man. They don't come from kings, and they don't come from a charter. Our rights come from God. That's where they come from. They are not something that any man can ever take away, because they exist simply because we do. That fundamentally changed the world. That concept changed everything. And it built a country that can actually sustain and can actually go on. Under that republic, the format of a republic, we can continue. We must not let ourselves get lulled into a sense of confidence in these current politicians and what they're telling us about democracy. It simply is not true. We must remain a constitutional republic based on that founding document that our founders gave us so long ago. And that's what we need to take our federal government, and we need to let those leaders know that those are the principles that we stand for. And that's largely what this Tea Party movement and the town halls and all of this is about. It's about getting back to those roots that made America great, those foundational freedoms based on rights given from God. And that's exactly where we need to go. And as a congressman, I will fight for those rights. Thank you.